Lakeland Currents, your public affairs program for north central Minnesota. Production funding for Lakeland Currents is made possible by Bemidji Regional Airport, serving the region with daily flights to Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. More information available at bemidjiairport.org. Closed captioning for Lakeland Currents is sponsored by Nisswa Tax Service, tax preparation for businesses and individuals. Online at nisswatax.com.
Hello again. I'm Jason Edens, your host of Lakeland Currents. Thank you for joining us again, and thanks for your continued support of Lakeland Public TV. Friends, as we continue to grapple with the COVID-19 pandemic, we hear a great deal about the state and federal response. However, local leaders throughout our country, and certainly in our region as well, are providing adaptive leadership on our behalf. Here to help us understand the role that counties play in this historic moment are three county commissioners from throughout our viewing area. Commissioner Neil Galswick from Cass County, Commissioner Bill Brecken from Crow Wing County, and Commissioner Reed Olson from Beltrami County. Gentlemen, thank you for your public service, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Let's get right down to it. We have a lot of ground to cover and only a brief period of time. So commissioners, first and foremost, I want to ask you a logistical question. I'm very curious to learn how it is that you're facilitating public meetings during the social distancing that we're experiencing. And more importantly, I'm very interested in learning how the public can still participate in county meetings. Commissioner Olson, can we start with you? I understand that Beltrami County has had some interesting experiences of late.
Yes, our first attempt at having a public meeting through Zoom, I think we could say was an unmitigated disaster initially. We start our meetings at 3 p.m. At 2:59, I had never heard of a thing called Zoom bombing, but by 3:10, I was pretty much an expert of it. I'd say that goes for all of us at the county. We got attacked, I guess, but basically graffiti, really obscene graffiti. So we had to cancel that Zoom meeting and open up again. And a couple county commissioners, myself being one of them, ended up live streaming or Facebook live streaming the meeting. And that was as close as we could get for that meeting to calling it public. The only problem is that you had to pretty much be a Facebook friend of mine or Commissioner Sumner to be able to see the feed. But at least we were able to make it public in some way. So we learned a lot, and our meeting next Tuesday will be much more secure. So that's what we'll be doing next week, I believe, is another Zoom meeting where we will have more controls over who can watch, but who can comment and who can use the annotation, which I didn't even know existed, and that was someone was able to hack into the annotation capability. So we will be doing it through Zoom. It's imperfect, but it is I think the best that we can do. And our last meeting, I had over 100 people watching. I think at the height I had about 121 people watching on Facebook Live. And if you go to a normal board meeting, we seldom have 121 people in the room. So even though it wasn't totally perfect, it was still, it really increased, I think, participation. So that's what we will be doing again. And I know it will work better than it did last time. And I'm interested to hear what my colleagues and other counties.
Well, that's a great example of it, adaptive leadership, and I really appreciate that. I'm sorry to hear that the first experience was challenging. Commissioners Galswick and Brecken, have you been using a similar platform, or how are your counties going about it?
We have not been broadcasting our meetings live to the public, but what we have been doing, we've been conducting all of our meetings at our Bacchus office. It's a larger meeting room, and then we have been allowing for citizen participation in a couple of ways. One is we can have 10 people in the room and still maintain the distance that's recommended by CDC and by Governor Walz. We have had a couple of situations where there was more significant public input. One of them, our board took up the issue of becoming a Second Amendment dedicated county. That, of course, drew some interest. So what we've done there is we've set up a public address system in the parking lot. Actually, it's military surplus. So there's a loudspeaker out there, and there's a microphone. People who wish to address the county board can come up to the microphone. At this point, we don't have video feed out there, but we have the audio capability. But we've been able to address it by allowing designated spokespeople to come into the room. Our committee meetings we've either been doing by teleconference or technology such as we're using for this program. In some ways, that's more convenient for me because it's an hour and 15 minutes for me to drive from my house to the courthouse. So it's quite a bit handier in some ways to sit down and at home and broadcast. But we have made sure that we have a staffed location where the materials that we are preparing to discuss are available. Members of the public can go there if they wish. We post all of our agendas and 100% of our board packet information, except for the confidential information relating to employees and so forth. We put that online so people can read, know what we're going to be talking about, and can participate virtually. They can also log in. So that's what we've been trying to do. In a lot of ways, it's business as usual, but it's business in an unusual fashion.
So just a quick follow-up question. Have you also seen an increase in participation like in Beltrami County, or is it about the same?
I'm going to say that it's about the same. I really don't have the data to see how many people have logged in, but as far as people showing up at our meetings, we're typically not the hottest story in town. So, if we get a handful, we have a crowd.
I see. And Commissioner Brecken, what's going on in Crow Wing County in terms of holding meetings during this period?
Well, we've been, again, kind of following a little bit more like Bemidji, where we've been actually doing the Facebook and program, and we've been doing a little YouTube along with videoing that. We've actually also moved our meeting of the whole to be publicly streamed too. So it seems to be good effect, and I actually have gotten, I haven't checked the numbers on participation, but I've been getting much more feedback from the meetings that we've had as we've been doing it. We've been fortunate where all of the commissioners have been able to get to the meeting, and then we've been social distancing there and spread out within the room, so that way we can again have the ability to broadcast. So it's worked out pretty good.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. By the way, Commissioner Brecken, we're having a hard time seeing you. If you can potentially just tilt your phone down a little bit. There we go. I appreciate that very much.
Is that
so
better?
The next thing, not quite, but it's a little better. There we go. Keep going.
Okay.
So the next thing I think we should discuss is a little bit about county budgets. I was wondering if each one of you could speak to how this is affecting your county budget, if at all. Why don't we start with you, Commissioner Brecken?
Well, what I think what we're seeing there is that there has been that impact, especially having to first with the county level making adjustments so that we're ready to reopen, and putting in sneeze guards and taking that, working and updating our technology. We have for ability to work from home. I think we now have the ability for at least 200 of our employees to be able to work remotely, and I think that definitely has a financial impact to it. We're also seeing the jail in the occupancy there is down, so that's affecting that. So we're definitely seeing an increase here. Get concerned about. Hopefully, we can get some financial reimbursement, I think, from the state or federal government as we go through there. But we're definitely seeing, this is going to be a couple $100,000 as we go forward in the cost to the county.
Commissioner Galswick, are you seeing similar figures? Are you having to lay anyone off, or are you having to reduce any services?
Well, Jason, we have not laid anyone off, and as I mentioned, it is business as usual in terms of delivery of service. People's needs are being met. The change, of course, is in how some of those services are delivered. Our courthouse has been closed to the public for I think 4 weeks now, and we'll be considering extending that. But we're making all of those services available online, and people are finding that they can access county services. We got a great report at our last board meeting from our director of our Health, Human and Veteran Services Division. really quite eye-opening to show just how much service we were continuing to deliver. In some cases, there has been an increased demand, but for the most part, we've been meeting the needs as anticipated. As far as the budget is concerned, we have not made any budget amendments. We are, however, quite concerned with future tax collections and what that will look like. We, like our neighboring counties, collect what's called the local option sales tax. In our county, of course, that's almost completely tourism driven, so we anticipate that going down. We have sought some reimbursement from the federal government. We're keeping track of all the extraordinary expenses, so that if that spigot gets opened, that we'll be there with our bucket as well as everyone else trying to get reimbursed. Cass County is in a solid financial condition. We have a decent budget reserve, and we're going to be able to continue operations. We don't have a hiring freeze, but we have, I guess I would say, heightened scrutiny being applied to any hiring requests that come before the county board.
Commissioner Olson, anything different in Beltrami, or is it a similar experience for you?
Yeah, I a lot of what the commissioner said, I can relate with, or we can relate with at Beltrami County. We're still providing essential services for our residents. We too have a lot of our staff working from home where appropriate. I think one of the budgetary concerns, I think on Tuesday next week, we'll be taking up whether or not and how to freeze penalties on for late payments of property taxes. So we might extend the deadline to July 15th to give some of the business owners time. Another thing that we are doing as a county that will have a significant budget impact is we contributed $250,000 to a local fund in partnership with our local economic development agency, Greater Bemidji, and the Department of Employment and Economic Development. And that is to give small, potentially, I think, partially forgivable loans to local businesses that are experiencing hardship right now. So it is kind of challenging, but I think that we do not have, I don't think that we can say the same as Cass County and say that our reserves are flush or whatever. So we are in kind of a tenuous situation, but I think that we'll be able to.
Well, it sounds like it's a developing story in Beltrami County. I'd like to shift now a little bit to talk about summer visitors. I'm sure the three of you are well aware of the fact that your peers up in Cook County 3 weeks ago now passed a non-binding resolution specifically asking vacation property owners to potentially stay at home for a while and not visit Cook County. As we approach the potential end of the stay-at-home order, what are your thoughts about visitors? Are you concerned with the fact that the COVID models currently see a peak sometime in July? Do you have any concerns about our beloved visitors coming up to Cass, Crow Wing, and Beltrami County?
Well, I can jump in on that one. I mean, I would like to invite them to come up. I think that, again, they have a financial investment into our area. This is their second homes. I think they have every right, really to be here and to participate. We also want to invite our tourists to support the resorts and the hospitality industry that we so depend on. And so I just see it as a real opportunity to help our economy continue to go along. I know that right now our medical facilities have capacity, so I don't see it as a major issue at this time.
So, Commissioner Galswick, of course, tens of thousands of people come to visit Cass County from throughout the world, frankly. What are your thoughts about the summer influx?
Jason, only about half of the land mass in Cass County is privately owned. And then you add to that, a little over half of our property tax statements are mailed to zip codes that lie outside of Cass County. That will give you, those two statistics taken together will give you a little bit of a glimpse into the window of the economic impact of tourism in Cass County. I was asked to comment on this a couple of weeks ago, and at the time I said that, there's a lot of things mixed up in this, but one of the things is this is individuals utilizing their own private property, being able to come up to their cabins. And I understand that they'll need to go to the grocery store, and we trust that that they'll do the social distancing and conduct themselves in a manner consistent with the way they were at home and the way we are here. There are no hospitals in Cass County, but we are surrounded by really good hospitals. There's hospital in Brainerd, hospital in Bemidji, hospital in Crosby, hospital in Staples. And those hospitals are set up to handle our summer crush, which takes Cass County's population from 30,000 to, I don't know, over 200,000 on weekends in the summertime, particularly when there's a big event. Now, I know some of the events have been canceled. Moon Dance is hopeful they're going to have their July event, but the earlier one has been postponed or canceled. But I think that while acknowledging that there are differing opinions on this, a large part of the economic engine of Cass County is tourism driven. We have a lot of space up here. If people come up to their homes, the streets are wide enough that we can walk on opposite sides of the street and wave to each other, and I think we'll all be fine.
Excellent. Commissioner Olson, what are your constituents saying about the summer influx?
Yeah, we have quite a few resorts, and just as Commissioner Galswig was saying, we very much rely on tourism dollars. I'm a little bit concerned about opening up too early. I myself own a restaurant that is very dependent on tourist dollars, and we've been closed. We're very dependent on foot traffic to the county and city and federal government campus in Bemidji in the off season, and then very dependent on tourism in the tourist season. And so we've been closed for 5 weeks now, and it's really concerning. Nobody likes to. I don't like that, but I'm a little bit concerned about overwhelming our hospital if people start traveling up from areas where the infection rates are higher. I think that at a certain point, Beltrami, I won't speak for your counties, but I think it's probably similar. Like you said, Commissioner Galswick, we have lots of territory. I think 75% of Beltrami County is publicly owned, so there is plenty of space for people to distance themselves. And I think that's why we've seen such low
Sure.
rates of infection in our counties. But I'm a little bit concerned about people coming up and then mixing with our population. But eventually, people are going to be coming to our area from infected counties, and I don't know how to best do that. It's a really tricky judgment call, I think, to make. And so I'm happy to leave that up to the Department of Health and follow their lead. When they say that it's okay, I'll believe them that it's okay. Which I think maybe we'll be hearing later on today from the state, is my understanding.
Well, Commissioner Brecken, I'd like to follow up with you just briefly. As you know, the Brainerd Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce filed a formal petition asking the governor to expedite the opening up of small businesses. I'm wondering if you have a position on that.
Well, I guess I'll be honest. I also personally signed that petition too. I think that we want to do it safely, but I'm really starting to see some inequities when you look at our big box stores. They're open. If it's Home Depot or Target, they may have people lined up at 4, 5, 15 deep, and then you've got the small businessman that you go in there, they maybe would have 1 or 2 customers. And sure. So I have a real concern too, though, for our restaurants. I mean, they're going to have the toughest plan to open. One of the initiatives that we're doing here in Crow Wing County is that we've been reaching out to different business segments, the grocery stores, to find out best practices. We're meeting tomorrow with our salons and barbershops to how they can establish the best practices so they can open and be safe doing it. And we're also starting to hear about businesses that are saying, we're going to have to just start open. And I guess I've even heard about churches that are starting to plan to start having services on Sundays. So we just have to make sure we do it safely and with the best practices possible.
Well, thank you for that. I want to also visit about something your peers again did in Clay County, where they authorized working with the state government in order to hire contact tracers. And I'm wondering if Cass, Crow Wing, and Beltrami are prepared to do something similar should the state ask for the county's assistance in doing contact tracing. Commissioner Galswick?
That is not a subject that's come up in Cass County. We have not been approached. I guess I'm not real familiar with what the state would be asking us to do, but if it involves identifying people and somehow electronically tracking them to figure out where they're going and where they have been based on whether or not they have antibodies, I would just have to say that philosophically I'm going to have some real concerns about that.
Mm-hmm.
And there would have to be a pretty vigorous discussion before I would be in favor of restricting our liberties to that extent.
Understood.
Yeah, Jason?
Please.
Yeah. I just was reading something in the NPR news today is that, 80% of the deaths in this are coming out of nursing homes.
Mm-hmm.
99% of the deaths, there has been some health compromise. We need to be focusing on our nursing homes
Mm-hmm.
and how can we help it? Because that's really where we're seeing the impact of loss of life. And so, it really means that, most people are, they're going to get it or transmit it, maybe have had exposure already because we're so far behind in our testing.
Sure.
So it's really a tough one.
Well, I appreciate that. All three of you have mentioned inequities in some way, shape, or form. So I'd like to touch on that a little bit. As of this morning, I believe about 550,000 Minnesotans have applied for jobless benefits. And I'm wondering how that's affecting your job as a county commissioner and what you're seeing in your local communities. Commissioner Olson.
I mean, as I said before, we laid off our staff at my business, and I know lots of people that are laid off. So yeah, it is the sooner we can get people back to work, of course, the better off we're going to be. I am afraid for businesses of my size and smaller that can't afford to just endlessly go without any cash flow. I'm not sure what the mechanism is going to be short of opening back up, but we are going to have to make sure that we're, especially I think our three communities, people drive up to our places, our counties, because of the local flavor that we offer. And one thing that I am afraid of is that a lot of the ma and pop businesses that give us that flavor are going to not withstand this time, and we're going to be giving over to more and more big box stores or chains, and we're going to lose a lot of our character. So I think that what is really crucial for us is to make sure that the businesses that we're doing fine in March are still here in August. And I'm not exactly sure on what the best way to do that is. I think that as counties, we have limited coffers and limited powers, but the state and the feds, I think, need to help us ensure that they can stay afloat until we get back to either business as it was normal or whatever the new normal is going to be.
And I'd like to visit about the new normal as we wrap this up. We only have a couple more minutes, but I have one more question for you specifically, Commissioner Olson. We're fortunate enough to share the geography of our counties with several First Nations or Native nations. I'm wondering if Beltrami County is doing anything specifically for our Native neighbors. Is there any forbearance or any special services that are being provided? To date, the money that was allocated for tribes through the CARES Act has yet to be dispersed. Is the county doing anything?
As far as giving money to the tribe, no, I don't believe so. What we are doing is partnering I think our emergency management team and our county community health director are working very close with the Red Lake Nation. The Red Lake Nation has taken this very seriously. Their territory has been basically on lockdown, and they're being very careful as to who can come onto the reservation. They are so overrepresented in negative health outcomes that if there is to be a infection washed through the reservation, it could be really catastrophic. Back to contract tracing, we've been doing more analog, not using any kind of cell phone data or anything like that, but asking someone that has been contracted, where have you been in the last 2 weeks? And then just calling those people up and asking them how they're feeling and stuff like that. So there we have been partnering with the tribe, but we definitely aren't taking the lead. I think that the Red Lake has been very
Sir.
proactive and really been
Uh,
taking it
Jason,
seriously.
do you have time for me to comment just a little bit?
Yes, please. And then we just have one final question. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, what I would say is that with the Leech Lake band, they're our largest employer. 1,200 people work at the casinos, and they've all been laid off.
Right.
And Tribal Chair Farron Jackson and I have had a couple of phone conversations about the effect and the impact. And Cass County and Leech, we have a very good working relationship on the staff level, and we share services. We have an office up in Cass Lake. We've been able to maintain that. But I just want to say that the portion of Cass County that lies behind the Leech Lake Tribal Reservation has had a very, very difficult time economically, historically. And it's only recently that they've started to come out of that. And you see the kind of hope and a brighter future, largely connected to gaming and the employment of gaming. And those 1,200 people aren't all tribal members. I think 80%, some high number like that, are non-tribal, non-enrolled members. And so it's a big deal. I am very concerned about what the economic impact of this pandemic and the closures that we already talked about, what that is going, the impact, the human impact that that's going to have on the north part of our county. I think that is going to be years in the unraveling.
Well, thank you for those comments. I appreciate that. In closing, gentlemen, I want to ask you if you are in contact with the state government, if you're hearing directly from the governor, and what is it that you anticipate the governor will say today at 2 regarding the stay-at-home order? And finally, what's the new normal in Crow Wing County? Let's start with you, Commissioner Brecken. And we only have a couple seconds here for each one of you. Closing comments, please.
We've been following the governor very closely. I know our department heads are working too with the commissioners at the state level. So we've gotten, I think, good communication and at least flow of that communication that way. I don't know what the new normal is going to be. That's going to be the interesting outcome of all of this. But we're all going to have to band together because as we look at this, getting our economy really back going and looking for those people that have really suffered from this and being able to reach out and offer support is going to be very, very key.
Thank you. Commissioner Galswick, very briefly.
What I would like to say is that I'm happy that there have been no surprises coming out of the governor's office. The communication has been excellent through the Association of Minnesota Counties, through webinars that the governor has put on for county commissioners and county staff. I'll leave the predictions up to someone else, but I will say that the communication has been really good. As far as the new normal is concerned, I think that we are discovering new ways of doing business, more efficient ways of doing business. I think that some of those will stay in place. They certainly will stay in place, and that will allow us to focus our direct human-to-human contact on those who have been most hurt, most harmed by this crisis.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you all very much for your time. We are out of time, but I also want to thank you so much again for your adaptive leadership and your public service. And I want to thank all of you for joining us again. I'm Jason Edens, your host of Lakeland Currents. Please send us your ideas. What's currently on your mind and what would you like to discuss? Everyone, stay strong, stay safe, be kind, and be well. And I look forward to seeing you next time.